Science is great, and the material world is wonderful, and what we can know of it and control it is great. But is that all there is to reality? I mean, even something as mysterious as a friendship or falling in love, can that be reduced to, glands or to chemicals or something? Even things that we experience in ordinary life don't seem understandable simply in a scientific way. There are elusive realities. Looking around this place, this beautiful place, what inspired these people to do it? Oh, it's chemical reactions in the brain. Doesn't that just seem inadequate as an explanation? I find that fascinating. You don't for a second denigrate the visible world or deny what science knows about it. But there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamed of in your philosophy or your chemistry or your physics or your science. So I wouldn't pose an either or, like there's science and there's magic, or there's science and superstition. There's science and then there's, wow, this super science. Thomas Aquinas called theology the sacra scientia. It's the holy science. It's a way of knowing. I think we have to recover that. I would submit that the doctrines concerning the so-called last things, hell, purgatory, and heaven, are simultaneously the most fascinating and the most objectionable of all of the Catholic Church's beliefs. When people want to critique or dismiss Catholic doctrine, they will often point to the supposed incompatibility of affirming the existence of an all-good God and an eternal hell, a place of unending torture. And at least from the time of Marx and Freud, many would point to the doctrine concerning heaven as an indication of, at best, the Church's naivete, and at worst, its duplicity. Is the belief in a place of perfect happiness after we die not a classic case of wishful thinking, childish fantasizing? And hasn't it been used as opium for the masses, simply a way to mollify people enduring the agonies of life? And even many Christians who gladly accept the doctrines of heaven and hell find the teaching on purgatory bizarre and arbitrary, lacking in any biblical foundation. Everyone, believer and non-believer alike, wonders and worries at some point about what will happen after we die. Hamlet spoke of that bourne from which no man returns, and the entire to be or not to be speech reflects an uneasy, bewildered fascination with what awaits us once we've shuffled off this mortal coil. Everyone loves a ghost story, in part because of its cathartic quality, but also because it seems to provide some hint of another world. More to it, the doctrines of heaven, hell, and purgatory beguile us precisely because of our sense of justice. Far too many good people die without receiving in this life a sufficient reward for their goodness. And many wicked people die without being compelled in this life to pay for their wickedness. If God is just, it seems there has to be some state of being, some place, in which these injustices are set right. And so we turn to the last things. What does the Catholic Church teach in regard to heaven, hell, and purgatory? What does it hold concerning a dimension that we cannot directly see, but that nevertheless intrigues all of us who live on the near side of the sleep of death? T.S. Eliot said that Western literature is divided between two truly great figures, Shakespeare and Dante, all the rest qualifying as secondary. If Eliot's right, how wonderful that the principal work of one of the two greatest writers in the West has to do with our subject, with heaven, hell, and purgatory. Dante composed his masterpiece, The Divine Comedy, when he was wandering in exile, far from his beloved Florence, a city to which he would never return. It was during those lonely years, when he was lost both personally and politically, that Dante composed this work on the world to come. The Divine Comedy is obviously a work of creative imagination, so we shouldn't take it with complete literalness. Nevertheless, it's informed by very sound theology and marked at every turn by the perceptiveness of a transcendently great poet who's also a profound believer. Therefore, as we seek to look through the veil into the world to come, we can take Dante as a very reliable guide. Dante's first stop, and ours, will be hell. Dante is led through hell by the Roman poet Virgil. They move downward through the topography of hell, winding their way on an ever narrower path, until they come to the very bottom, where they see Satan himself. The devil, first of all, is not standing amidst fire, but rather stuck in ice, frozen in place. St. Augustine defines sin as being incurvatus in se, caved in on oneself. We are meant to break out of the narrow confines of the self and to mix with the world. We are by nature hungry for the fullness of being. To sin is voluntarily to turn away from this and to reign as the sovereign of one's own little kingdom. In Dante's imagination, Satan has great wings like a bat. We are meant to fly. Chesterton asked, "How come the angels can fly?" His answer, "Because they take themselves so lightly." Sin is a heaviness, the state of being weighed down. We try to fly, flapping our wings, because that's our nature. But all we succeed in doing is making the world around us colder. Satan, for Dante, is responsible for the frozen meteorology of hell. Satan has three faces, mimicking the three persons of the Trinity, because he dared to grasp at godliness. All of us sinners, deep down, think that we're God, because we're convinced that the universe revolves around us. Dante tells us that from all six of his eyes, Satan weeps. Sin, self-absorption, being stuck in the narrow confines of the ego, is above all sad. There's nothing glamorous about evil. It is depressing, soul-shrinking, and finally powerless. When Virgil and Dante approach Satan, he does nothing to stop them. Like someone caught in a deep depression. He doesn't even notice them. This is the total self-absorption of hell. Hell, like heaven, can be anticipated even now. Whenever we choose the iciness of self-absorption, we are tasting hell. Why is Satan where he is? The short answer, because he wants to be there. The doctrine of hell really is a corollary of two more fundamental convictions, namely that God is love and that we are free. As I've said before, love is not simply an attribute of God, not simply something God does from time to time. Rather, love is what God is. God's love, therefore, is like the sun that shines on the good and bad alike. What makes all the difference is how that love is received. If we freely receive it positively, we bask in its light and its warmth. But if it's resisted, it becomes like a torture to us. C.S. Lewis said, it's precisely the love of God that lights up the fires of hell. What could that possibly mean? Well, think of someone who's been stuck in a deep mine for several days, and now they're suddenly brought out into the bright glare of the sunlight. Well, it'd be like agony to them. Or think of someone in a terrible frame of mind. Who is most annoying to them? Precisely someone who's relentlessly cheerful. God's love is eternal. God's love is absolute. What makes the difference is how we freely respond to it.